history of Vietnamese. Learning Vietnamese is not easy because the Vietnamese language is have 6 tones and related with Latin alphabet or the different culture. And so knowing about the history of Vietnamese is very important. Let's think about comparing to Korean and Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese. And these languages, the origin of the Chinese characters, it really related with the culture and history in East Asia. In East Asia, with the connected naturally and from north to south, and then Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia. But the Vietnam has different background between other countries in Southeast Asia. Uh, just the language is a little different and goes and the origin of the history in Vietnam is from northern Vietnam, named the Vietnam, and then the expanded uh, from north to the south. That is the historical story. So the history of Vietnamese, the originate is the written language, just like other languages like Korean or Japanese, and the written languages is important. It is used, it was used for a long time. For example, in Vietnam, the Chinese characters are used until 12th century. And then all the documents are written in Chinese characters. And it's similar like in Korea. In Korea also written in Chinese character until 15th century and mostly, and then the Hangul, the Korean characters are invented. In Vietnam, 12th century, when the independence from China and also the became the dynasty or country in Vietnam. There was some moment of the independence in culture and politics and economics. So and then they tried to invent the new language. The name is Vietnamese named Junom. That language is added another meaning with the Chinese character. So the Vietnamese Chinese language is much more complicated. So scholar and other academic and politics document can be written, but it's very difficult. So and then the common people cannot understand about the Vietnamese Chinese characters itself. And the century when the colonial area or the voyage age in the world, the European country, and then went to the East Asia through uh, America, and then after finding America, and they are connected with, they know about that looting, and then the Magellan, and turn around the world, and also they knew about. So, and other country like Holland and Portugal, and they dominated the area of Southeast Asia. Then, and at the same time, just like the um, ministry, and then when they colonized or when they tried to ministry and a mission of the Christian Catholic. Then in Vietnam, and many ministers from Western Europe and most of all Portuguese ministers, and they did mission at in Vietnam. So and then when they communicate with the Vietnamese people, they need to communicate by using the uh, letters or the documents. But the Vietnamese Chinese characters are too difficult. Also, common people didn't know about the Chinese character. And then, so among them, they tried to with invented writing system with the Latin alphabet. So we did the sound. So and then by doing that, and they and the common people could read the sentence, communicate. That was the national letters in Vietnam started, was invented by the minister and then Western ministers. And then it's the 16th, 17th centuries. Well, after the Vietnam, the unified from north to the south, by doing that, and then Vietnam has identity in the languages, Vietnamese languages. So since then, the Vietnamese languages has been used until now. But the historically and the background is connected with the East Asia. The language itself is very important. So, and then in terms of the language in Vietnam, it's connected with East Asia rather than Southeast Asia because Vietnamese language and other Thai or Cambodia, Laos languages are quite different in writing system. But still, and historically, the country Champa, the southern, middle, and southern country, and then they are connected with the other west, southeast country. So, and then knowing about the origin of or culture of the Vietnamese language is very academic and then very difficult to understand about. That is researched and also very academic. Okay, today I review about in terms of Chinese character, why the Vietnamese languages was invented by the Western minister, and the history of Vietnamese language is very important to learn Vietnamese languages. In English, you make contempt of history of Vietnamese in terms of from all the Chinese character for writing system to Independence Day from Vietnam and 12th century is the Vietnamese Chinese character genome, and also the Latin minister, like Portuguese minister invented the Vietnamese national language now, the based in the Latin language. And uh, after book reading it, now I can add my review about the history of Vietnamese from Ellen. And then I can get the AI clear. The history of Vietnamese language from Chinese character to Quốc Ngữ. And let's see. Basically, what I told is much more um, from the contents from AI better. Translate into Korean and Vietnamese above. Hmm. Now, we get a copy to review about the story of Vietnamese, and then let's try to get it. The history of the language, the history of the Vietnamese language from Chinese character to Brooklyn. The history of the Vietnamese language is deeply connected with East Asian culture, Chinese character, and wider with the European influence. Understanding this history is important because learning Vietnamese is not easy. Vietnamese has a system, a complex vocabulary system, and a long cultural background. Knowing how the language developed helps learner understand why Vietnamese looks and sounds the way it does today. Early origin, Vietnamese and the East Asian cultural sphere. Vietnam, Korea, Japan, and China share one major cultural connection. Their classical writing system originally came from Chinese character and characters. China used Chinese characters since the ancient times. Korea used Chinese character until the 15th century before the invention of Hangul. Japan adopted Kanji and later developed hiragana and katakana. Vietnam also used Chinese character for more than 1,000 years. Vietnam is located Southeast Asia, but culturally and historically it has a strong link with East Asia, especially Northern culture. Vietnamese civilization originally developed in the Red River Delta in the north and gradually expanded southward for centuries, a process called Nam Tien, the southward expansion. Nam Tien. Vietnamese under Chinese rule before the 6th, 10th, and 12th century. For more than 1,000 years, Vietnam was under the control of various Chinese dynasties. During this period, the government law, administration, education, and literature were all written in classical Chinese and Hanban. And all official documents used Chinese characters. Only trained scholar Mandarin could read and write. This situation was very similar to Korea and Japan, where Chinese characters dominate all education and administration. Independence and the birth of Junong, thanks to 12th century. After Vietnam regained independence in the 10th century and established its own dynasty, the Vietnamese people wanted a writing system that could express native Vietnamese words, not only Chinese vocabulary. So they created the Junong, a writing system that uses Chinese characters, added a newly invented character to represent Vietnamese sound, allowed Vietnamese poetry, literature, and folk culture to be written down. However, Junong was very complex, more difficult than Chinese itself. Only scholars could read it. Common people could not read it easily. This is similar to how Japan created complex kanji, kana system, but the pen system became widely used while Junong remained limited to the scholar. European contact and the creation of Quốc 16th, 17th century. In the 16th to 17th century, Portuguese and French missionary arrived in Vietnam. Missionary needed to learn Vietnamese, which Christianity to common people. The whole Vietnamese pronunciation accurately. The Chinese character and the genome were too difficult for foreigner and many everyday Vietnamese. So they began writing Vietnamese using the Latin alphabet based on sound. The most famous contributor was Alexandre de Rhodes, a French Jewish missionary who published Dictionarium Animaticum Lusitanum et Latinum, 1651. The first Vietnamese Portuguese Latin dictionary. The first Vietnamese Portuguese Latin dictionary. And in this Latin-based writing system later became known as the Quốc Ngữ national script, and modernized and national identity. 19th century, 20th centuries. In the 19th century, during French rule, Quốc Ngữ began spreading more widely. By the early 20th century, Quốc Ngữ became the main writing system. Newspaper, school, and government used it. Journal and Chinese characters slowly disappeared. When Vietnamese declared independence on September 2, and in 1945, Quốc Ngữ officially became the national writing system of Vietnam. Why understanding this history matters for us. Today, Vietnamese looks like a Latin-based language, but historically it is linked to Chinese characters, East Asian culture, classical literature, and Northern and Southeast Asian migration. This is why Vietnamese has many Sino-Vietnamese words similar to Korean and Japanese Sino words. Vietnamese tones are similar to other Southeast Asian tonal languages, Thai, Lao, grammar and culture, and mixed influence from both East Asia and Southeast Asia. Vietnamese is not easy to learn because of six-tone, complex consonant system, many Chinese origin word, cultural expression, long structural layer. But understanding the history makes learning easier and more meaningful. So summary, before 10th century, Vietnamese used the classical Chinese, 10th, 12th century, Yunnan Great Vietnamese based in China's live script. 16th, 17th century missionary create Latin-based writings, the Quốc Ngữ. 20th century, the Quốc Ngữ becomes a national script after Independence Day. Vietnam's history is a bridge between East Asia, Sanskrit, and Southeast Asia, on cultural local languages.